Tuyambi.
No.
Attempts of rape, torture, mental instability, and death. The media is awash with many stories of pain and agony, torture, human trafficking, and organ transplant among domestic workers in the Gulf region. The African Institute for Investigative Journalism takes a stand to look beyond these headlines. Barbara Maureen Kalumba is a mental health practitioner and counselor. During her 15 years of work, she has had several counseling sessions with domestic workers who have returned from the Gulf region struggling with mental health and psychosocial issues. She wants to get to the bottom of the issue of labor externalization in Uganda. Barbara is going to walk us through the journey of the plight of domestic workers in the Gulf region.
So I got interested in knowing what exactly triggers these issues. Is it something that the girls are exposed to that actually triggers their mental health challenges, or there are underlying issues that the girls have but they're never assessed nor addressed, and hence when they're exposed to more stress or more pressure, then they erupt into mental health episodes and presentation. So that triggered me to really work on this story.
According to Uganda's Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development, between 1,500 and 2,000 migrant workers are leaving the country every month. A mass exodus of young girls and boys leaving Uganda on a daily. These are destined for different locations across the Gulf and other European countries. They all exit through Uganda's main border post, Entebbe International Airport. The Aviation Authority keeps a record of the migrant workers.
When we look specifically at migrant workers to the Middle East and the other destinations like Turkey, India, Iraq and Lebanon, we in 2020, the year of COVID, facilitated just about 200 migrant workers. In 2021, the airport facilitated about 2,100 migrant workers. Then the number rose in 2022. Just between the period from January to August 2022, the number of migrant workers facilitated through the airport rose to a total of 64,000 migrant workers, of all the other total number of passengers that I've mentioned. So we notice that after COVID, there has been an increase in the number of migrant workers, the bulk being female. When you look at that total number held in the first part of 2022, of the 64,000 migrant workers facilitated from January to August 2022, 59,000 were female and only about 7,000 were male. So the majority are female.
This bulk of girls leaving the country will be the center of the investigation. This investigation will seek to answer 3 questions. Why are the girls on the go? What happens in the Gulf region? And who is benefiting from the labor export? The findings will shock you. Labor externalization business is lucrative and highly risky. Those within these circles can only watch us at a distance, but closely.
The syndicate nature of trafficking in persons can be a dangerous space to work in. So please keep yourself safe, but also keep yourself refreshed emotionally.
Barbara is braced for this. Right away, we will speak to these returnees. Takia Kawesa, Christine Nabikolo, Bernard Katabalwa and Hamida Naluwu share a combination of factors that shattered their dreams. "22-year-old Takia Kawesa has just returned from Saudi Arabia. She had developed severe health complications.
When I reached the hospital, they told me they found I had a chest blanch toxicity. Yeah, that is a disease that affects the chest and by chemicals. Yeah, it is brought by too much chemicals you use in your daily life, in your, to clean or to do something. They recommended me to get the inhaler, that hand inhaler. I could get it, I accepted.
She now stays with her parents who are supporting her on her recovery journey. While in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, Takia complained of chest pain, headache and fever with dyspnea. Takia had a heavy work schedule which could have taken a toll on her.
I was working in a 3-floor house. In that 3-floor house, you have to clean the upper, the second one, and the first one. That woman never wanted to see you sitting there. Even if she could see me on my phone, she could say, come and clean here. Even if I was on my phone, she hears like I'm on phone, she could say, come and peel the onions. You have to do something.
Her stay in Saudi Arabia was short-lived. For only 8 months, Takia couldn't freely tell her story.
You can't be glorified when you have no story to share to someone and you put on the table to see that you tell them, I passed through this. You haven't risked yet. But when you risk, you take the risks. When you take the risks, you get the story.
She feels devastated.
The first time I got into depression was the first day they told me I won't give birth. And the second day, it was the day they told me I have a spot on the kidney, and I wish to die that day.
In her going to Saudi Arabia, she thought life would be good. She'll come back with money, make it happen here. But she came back with an illness that is life-limiting for her as a young woman who had a dream of being a mother, but also as a young woman who could just want to have life. She can't do that without medication or without inhalation.
According to Standard Employment Contract for Domestic Service Workers bound for the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, it states that the domestic service worker voluntarily binds themselves to the following terms and conditions. 1. A contract and duration. The contract shall be valid for a period of 2 years commencing from the date of arrival. In accordance with the regulations prevailing in both countries, the DSW and employer agree on a monthly salary. DSW shall be provided with continuous and undisturbed rest of at least 9 hours per day. DSW shall be entitled to 1 day rest per week. If she works on her holiday with mutual consent, he or she shall be provided with another day rest. The employer shall pay for the transportation of the DSW from the point of origin in Uganda to the site of employment and back to such point of origin in Uganda upon expiry of the contract. He shall ensure that DSW is repatriated in time. Takia Kawesa can only read this contract. None of the terms in it was followed to the letter. She is lucky to be alive. We take the journey to Christine Nabikolo, who has been bedridden for the past 10 months. Christine is depressed about the life she lived in Saudi Arabia under her employers.
I had to clean everything while crawling. I even asked God to take me because it was too much.
In February 2021, Christine left Uganda for Saudi Arabia to be able to fend for her family back home. But while on duty, she developed kidney failure, which has caused sore wounds on her thighs and legs. Her dream in the Gulf got shattered at this point.
I have dreams. So I thought when I go there, I'll change my life. So I have friends. They went there and they came back. They are now good. I thought maybe I'll be lucky to change my life. but unfortunately, couldn't.
Christine returned a year later to this sickbed. Her mother can only do so much. They are now stuck with medical bills to the tune of close to $10,000.
Sirina busobozi bwonna naye bwe ntunuulira ennyo ssente ezo sirina gye ŋŋenda zijja ne bwe mba ŋŋamba nti nkola sirina mulimu.
Her employers have not been forthcoming in her call for help. According to Statutory Instrument 62 of 2005, an employer shall provide every migrant worker insurance which is applicable to the host country, and the proceeds or benefits from insurance cover shall be payable to the designated beneficiaries. Christine is only living on hope.
I love my life. So I just pray to God that He give me, let me call it, second chance.
Uganda has an embassy in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, which is supposed to be an oasis for girls who go through this kind of trauma. We asked Uganda's Foreign Affairs Minister, Okello Oryem, about what government is doing to rescue these girls.
We give them counsel advice, we tell them to get in touch with their companies, we inform their companies that this girl is stuck, she's a problem, you should bring them back. We advise them that if they need legal counsel, there's opportunity for legal counsel here and there. But what we don't give out is cash. We don't have the capacity to give everybody cash who comes. And if you're stuck in London, I'm not going to give you cash. The most I will give you is assistance and directive on how to handle and get out of your situation.
Minister Oryem says government has tried to engage the government of Saudi Arabia about these concerns.
We have protested over and over again. And we made it very clear that it's unacceptable by this government for what's been done to its citizens. It's on record. You can get to the PS and you find numerous protests.
For now, he has one piece of advice for those who seek to go abroad for work.
My advice is anybody who so chooses to go in this place, my advice is don't go. Because the expectations are too high as to what the government of Uganda can do. And Uganda government doesn't have the capacity. Your expectations are too high. That if you get into problems, we will jump into action, a SWAT team will come, pick you up, and buy a business class ticket and bring you. It won't happen. My advice to every single girl, you know the stories, you know what's happening there, stay at home.
No.
Many girls across Africa have lost their lives while in domestic service in the Gulf region. Abdallah Kayonde is an activist advocating for the safe return of migrant workers who are stuck in the Gulf. His organization works with laws to file suits against the contradicting agencies and push for compensation for the returnees.
We should not lie to ourselves that the torture in the Arab world, especially Saudi Arabia, will stop.
Migrant workers in Saudi Arabia continue to be vulnerable to abuse and exploitation under the country's sponsorship system, and thousands are arbitrarily detained, deported, and have their right to health violated. This reaffirms the next journey that we take. We take a 3-hour drive to the district of Masaka, where a family has just received the remains of their daughter. Hamida Naluwu worked in Saudi Arabia as a domestic worker for 1 year, only to return dead in this little casket. Her mother is in grief for her loss. Her last phone conversation says it all.
Abaana bange obafeeko balabirire tusalwe ndidda ate awo ng'essimu weeri nali sinnaba kumuddamu nagenda okulya nga amaziga gazze nga naye nagenda okulya nga atandise byakkaaba ffenna ne tudda mu maziga essimu neggwako era bye bigambo ndowooza bye nasembayo okwogerako naye okutuusa waafiiridde.
this family suffered to return the remains of their daughter. They had to raise money, which took them 8 months after her death. Today, Hamida is being put to her final resting home, and it's a moment of agony as their hope for a better life is equally buried.
Kadde baffe nga batandise omwenyumirizaamu ng'oba oli awo naffe essuubi tulifunye erikola ki erigenda ebweru tusobole naffe okwetanira okwagala okukola tusobole ositula bakadde baffe obeera nga tubalabirira mu mbeera ennungi.
Abantu beeyongera kufa ate abantu babatwala ate ne bamala ne babeesamba.
Her concern is shared by different people in the country. A group of migrant workers, Torture Survivors Movement Uganda, decided to take up a protest against the continued torture and killings of Ugandan migrant workers in the Middle East. They carry a coffin to the Saudi Arabia embassy in Kampala. It is a symbol of death and an illustration of what they went through while in Saudi Arabia. And their call for a stop of the killings is louder.
We can't let the government give a blind eye on the dead bodies that enter airport every day. In a space of 1 month, we've lost 5 lives, and we are saying, why girls, and why are they dying in Saudi Arabia? A Saudi Arabian country has never come out to clarify the ongoing killings, and why are Ugandans only?
Uganda's government can only labor to explain its efforts.
Once we now deploy the Labour Chase, I think most of these challenges will be reduced.
Then the Minister of Internal Affairs can only reaffirm the government's mandate.
We want these people who are exporting our people to be conscious that the Uganda government follows up its citizens.
Most Ugandan domestic workers have suffered single-handedly under repression and suppression in the host countries.
Dr. Annette Chirabira is a counseling psychologist running a rehabilitation facility for domestic workers and recommends a revision of key aspects in managing the labor migration problem.
But also Uganda needs to posture itself very well when we are negotiating bilateral. We cannot sell ourselves short. Uganda needs to come to the negotiating table strong. Like now the Saudi bilateral agreement is expiring in December. The negotiations have started. Who is negotiating for Uganda? How are we negotiating for ourselves? Are we just saying, oh, help us because we have unemployment? Or we're actually saying we're giving you a valuable resource. The greatest resource anyone can ever give you is a human being. Not even their expertise. But when you're sitting at the negotiating table, are you negotiating strong? Or the game is tilted? Or the table is, the ground is unlevel for Ugandans? So I think Uganda, for enforcing the laws, enforcing the agreements, enforcing the whole monitoring thing, we still need to do that. Then training our people, sensitizing our people, alerting our people about what they can do and then planning better reintegration. But also Uganda needs to start thinking, are we going to externalize forever?
She deals with several returnees, and her experience with the girls paints a generational problem.
They already have other traumas before they even leave the country. Most of them are coming from broken settings, they're coming from situations of poverty, of lack. So by the time the person even goes to encounter a new culture, a new work setting and all the things, they already have actually things they need to deal with. So I think for Uganda, we need to rethink the whole externalization process. How do we prepare our people? But also, how do we debrief when Ugandans come back? And remember, they're coming back to a setting that most of their settings haven't quite changed. But also we are aware of those who have come back and their families maybe squandered the little remittances they sent back, their children never went to school. In one way or another, some of the people who have been externalized, when they come back, they are worse than they left. So those are some of the challenges. Now, that is not to say that people are not free to migrate and work, but I think we really, really need to look into preparing people to go out there and work, but also preparing them to reintegrate. I think reintegrating has become a bigger challenge than we had anticipated.
Uganda is one of the poorest countries, with 30.1% of its population below the poverty line of $1.77 per person per day. The youth labor underutilization rate in Uganda is high, forcing them into the labor export market.
I feel like we should go all the way. You need to look at facts, look at your employment levels, look at your job scarcity levels, look at your levels of education. We need to just keep improving on the training. We need to improve on the quality of our people that we're externalizing, because bottom line is these are our ambassadors.
Labor externalization is robbing Uganda of its best workforce as more young people flock the Middle East for jobs. While this is one solution to higher unemployment, it has several challenges of weakness in the country and failure to create gainful employment for its young population. More than 500 girls leave Uganda each day for domestic work in the Arab world, as per Internal Affairs Ministry. This means 1,500 girls leave Uganda every month for domestic work. Most families back home rely on these domestic workers for their survival, and it is an option they hope to change their lives from the biting poverty in the country.
Bana beetaga okusoma, beetaga okwambala n'okulya, aye nga nzira obusobozi bwona nekisinze okuntwala Saudi Arabia sobola okukola ku ssente kuyamba ku family yange.
I'm going to work in Saudi Arabia. I get my money, I save it, I come and I buy a plot, I build, I set my business.
According to the Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development, there are over 300 licensed private recruitment companies in the country, but there are hundreds of unlicensed companies operating illegally. The recruitment agencies are tasked by employers to find candidates for vacant positions within their organizations to save time and money and access the extended candidate to a direct advert and company network. These companies work with human resource agencies in the Arab world, like Tamkeen Human Resources Company in the Arab world. Tamkeen provides employment services and professional solutions to the Saudi market in accordance with the requirements of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. It has several branches across the kingdom. It is one of the biggest human resource agencies that provides hourly domestic labor for monthly, business sector, medical sector. Labor externalization is a rigorous process but systematic. We detail how domestic workers leave the country and break it down for you to understand how it's run. This is an animation of the journey to Saudi Arabia. A girl or boy in need of a job will make inquiries from a labor externalization company for any available job slots or employment opportunity. At times, these workers are identified by companies' agents within the villages and referred to the different companies. The companies will then give the girls or boys all the necessary requirements for them to be able to qualify for the opportunities to travel. These include a valid passport, primary medical checkup, and depending on which agency, you are required to pay a certain fee to facilitate your recruitment process. At this point, you are required to take a full-frame photo dressed as a Muslim. Girls are expected to fully be veiled. These photos are sent to the potential employers in Saudi. The girl will now return to their homes for an opportunity to break. When one is got, the company will alert them through a phone call. This could take some time, ranging from a month or more, though at times it could be less waiting time. At this point, we are closer to the much-awaited opportunity. The girls are now given standard employment contracts for domestic service workers in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. They have them signed, and at this point, they stay at the recruitment companies and are not expected back to their homes. The cake gets sweeter when the pre-departure training comes in. Here, they are oriented into the life of Saudi Arabia and given a sneak peek of what to expect. In the meantime, they will go through routine medical checks a day or two to the departure date. Here, they will do pregnancy tests, COVID tests, blood tests, HIV tests, and a full blood screen and body scan. It is the D-Day, and the girls are clad in their branded uniforms of the receiving recruitment agency in Saudi Arabia, and this is the moment most of them have been waiting for. Off they fly, off to the Arab world. Its dreams come true. Harriet Nachiwala Chimera is the Chief Executive Officer of Diamond Roses Limited, a labor externalization company, and is taking these girls all the way to Saudi Arabia. They are going through orientation before they depart for their dreamland.
Yeah, my dream is to get a good business. Then I go because I want to become a lawyer.
Okugenda Saudi nasooka kirowoozaako. Kati nemmalira kye tuyita nniya mu busiraamu nemmalirira kati ndi mmalirivu okugenda.
I can't trust my dad with their things. I want my own. That's why I want to go to plan for my future.
In 2018, the Uganda government signed a labor recruitment bilateral agreement with Saudi Arabia to allow Ugandan professionals, manual laborers, engineers and welders to seek employment in the kingdom. This was an effort to clean up the recruitment sector in both countries. However, the business is not a bed of roses.
Out there are cartels of human traffickers, cartels of human traffickers. While we have organizations like IMO and IOM, we have the UN behind us, they're doing their best to see that they streamline migration of labor. However, traffickers have made it very impossible to have a clean system.
According to the pre-departure orientation for Ugandan workers, IOM UN Migration provides a training manual with 9 program units which should be covered in a period of 14 days. The program units are detailed in the manual to highlight 1. Introduction to pre-departure orientation training. Here, they are expected to go through 5 sessions which include mindset and behavior, personal and psychological well-being, foreign language and communication, work ethics and conduct. 2. Employment contract, laws and regulations. 3. Job specification. 4. Destination country. 5. Financial management. 6. Migrant support system. 7. Smart easy travel and behavior. 8. Health and emerging issues. Considering the village background and education, this is a lot of content to grasp, and in most cases, this content is left on paper.
The truth is, we cannot do each and everything within 14 days. Because most of the people we get are really, like we get a lot of people who are completely illiterate, who have never gone to school, like who have never come to town, they don't know even a bulb, a mere bulb. They've never seen electricity, they've never seen any form of civilization. But what we do, at least we introduce you to this modern, a little bit of modern world. You understand? We cannot make her understand each and everything in 14 days, but at least we give her an idea of where she's going. At least she's not as empty as she was before coming to the training.
Maybe a bit more long-term training might help, and if in that training you're factoring in mental health support, teaching people more about themselves and dealing with their challenges before they leave, that might be better. Right now I know we have a pre-departure orientation program which is very short, and we've reliably learned that not everyone does the preparation adequately. So all those are gaps that we can fill. In the destination countries where they go to work, I don't know how we can factor in mental health support. Just like somebody would have medical insurance and they can access all services. But on return, I think as a country, we still have a gap in tracking who has returned, even if they've not been in trafficking in persons. Let's say you went to work, you completed your 2-year contract and you're returning. We don't have a system yet that tracks every returnee, and then we don't have a program that can support returnees. Okay, you've come back. Do you debrief? Do you speak to somebody? How do you get supported? I think we still have a long way to go. Either structurally the government needs to factor that in, or the companies, or the individuals, I think as Ugandans also.
Last year, remittances from the externalization of labor to the Middle East rose to $1.2 billion. That is about 4.4 trillion Uganda shillings, up from $600 million, which is about 2.2 trillion Uganda shillings in 2019, and $30.9 million, which is 1.1 trillion Uganda shillings by 2018. Labor externalization is a lucrative business that the powers that be will live to protect.
They get employment abroad and then make returns. They send remittances into the economy.
Defensive and excited about the remittances. Only excited about the remittances. Oh, we are getting money. Hello, those girls are lying. Actually, they don't know all what I'm talking about. And they choose wrong people. Wrong people.
It has grown into a formidable source of foreign direct income with the annual remittance of about $900 million per annum. That's approximately 3.4 trillion. That's Uganda shillings. From migrant workers in Middle East. This is what we get as government.
It's a bitter pill that we will keep swallowing as a country, with undertones of corruption and dubious underworkings across the chain of operation. We set out to answer key questions in this investigation of who is benefiting from labor export, but as we make headways to the labor recruitment agencies to objectively discuss the trade, their cold response to us will shock you. It is a tone of fear and panic among the recruitment agencies. We probing into their business is seen as not a good idea. AIIJ got a glimpse into their internal WhatsApp discussions, and we relay as is. Good afternoon, team. There is a lady by the names Barbara Naziwa Kalumba going around office introducing herself as an investigative journalist and asking about the process of recruiting girls until they are externalized. Just realized their project might be detrimental to our industry because she has failed to present a formal introduction from UERA on her second visit to our office, so please be vigilant.
And I think for most companies that took them off guard because they believe journalists are not out for any good. So they did not think that this was meant for their good. They thought being an investigation story, you're out to unearth that and spread it out. So initially the risk was, I would say, 0 to 1. But after that call went out, because one of our sources called me and said, you've been put on a red alert, so you need to lay low for some time until the dust cools off. Even the appointments we had scheduled for that week, like everyone called off, like I can't.
We are further stunned by our key source in the investigation, who immediately cuts communication. Good morning. I'm not going to be able to do the story. This case is about my life, not my job. I want to stay alive. Labor externalization is a business that is fetching lots of remittances for the country, but to have a candid conversation about it is a fear factor.
It's a risky business. The people that are running this business, I think, know more than what meets the eye. So for the stories that we've had, for the TikToks that keep going around, I think we shouldn't just be thinking, people out there making noise, they're being funny. To be nice to someone to want to find out why this form of TikTok, why this form of propaganda that is going in, so that we can be able to clean the business.
Later on in this investigation, the Uganda Association of External Recruitment Agencies reached out to respond to some of the allegations raised by the girls. On the issue of mistreatment and torture and abuse of these girls, UERA says they have systems that they have set up to track each girl that's given to the company.
Even when one would say that the Saudi company should take over once a person reaches the other side, the Ugandan companies have continued to take responsibility. How? They deploy what we call supervisors. Companies deploy for every 100 migrant workers or domestic workers, in this case they send what we call a supervisor. The role of this supervisor is to ensure, to check and always be informed about the status of the people that have traveled. So should there be any case, these people should be able to contact the supervisor, but as well as the company. Now, the people who go to work, or these ladies, have smartphones because it's a right based on the bilateral that the government signed, but also the contract that they signed. Now, at any point, the use of this phone is to be able to communicate, both to their homes, to their families, but also to the company here in Uganda, but also the company in Saudi Arabia, should there be any need or should there be a distress registered. So those are the channels, some of the channels that we use. But that aside, the companies go ahead to form what we call welfare committees or welfare groups, whose role is to always supervise and get to know the status of these people.
Ura says that the government of Uganda must do more to protect Ugandans working in the Gulf by recruiting labor attaches at the embassy.
We all know that when you're in a foreign country, the embassy takes over your presence in that country. Now, what does the regulation say? It says that, well, in that country, the foreign embassy, or Ugandan embassy, in Riyadh, is supposed to have what we call labor attaches. Labor attaches are supposed to supervise or monitor the well-being of these Ugandans in that country, Saudi Arabia. That is a gray area, because when you look at the other countries that would envy or would wish to be working more or less at the same pace, for example, countries like Philippines, they have labor attaches and other staff, support staff, in almost every major city in Saudi Arabia. That is lacking for the Ugandan side. And of course, our prayer is that this money that we pay, the $30, remember that I talked about, for every job vacancy that we get, should be plowed back in this sector. So that money, since it comes from the same sector, should be used by the government, because remember, we're deploying these people based on the bilateral that they signed. So it should be used in that country to supervise, to monitor the well-being of these people.
The responsibility of these girls should be actually the responsibility of the companies that take them there, not the responsibility of government. Because within the terms of taking them there, it is clear that if and when they want to withdraw, those companies should be able to bring them back. And you're an investigative journalist, I would urge you, and next opportunity, to investigate these companies, why they're defaulting, or why they should not be struck off for failing to perform or hold their part of the contract.
They also say that the sector, which contributed about $1.3 billion needs to be given attention.
Ugandans are in so many countries in the Middle East. We have Ugandans in Oman doing domestic work. We have Ugandans in UAE. You saw recently so many Ugandans being recorded sleeping under trees, most of them having gone to do this job of domestic work. We have Ugandans in Bahrain, we have Ugandans in Qatar, we have Ugandans everywhere. What would wish, or what the government should have done, is to sign more bilateral labor agreements with these host countries. Why? When one has traveled through legal means, or what we call regular migration, someone is responsible. And that is our wish, that let the government of Uganda streamline this sector. Have people travel through the rich channels, have someone or a company responsible, which is missing. Because when you look at the Ugandans in those other countries, you cannot ask me what is happening to someone in Oman. But you can comfortably ask me of what is happening to someone in Saudi Arabia who has gone through a company A that is licensed. And that is the missing gap. So the other countries, we request the government of Uganda, that's something that they should look at very seriously. Have these bilaterals with these other countries signed, so that whoever wishes to travel, because very many Ugandans have benefited from this. Very many Ugandans have changed their lives. You look at someone who can barely read, some of the people that are externalized can barely read, but this is someone going to earn 900,000. We have so many graduates who are also going through to do this particular job and earning that money.
Is a 60% shareholder with Global Skills International Limited. He's believed to have quit the business over concerns of the wrongdoings. Back then, he ran the underworld of human trafficking.
I left this business. Now it is coming to 5 years ever since I left. But I know how it works. and most of them are in my contact. We normally call each other and we talk. We call each other for tea, drink, and we move out.
Reveals how a cartel is involved in human trafficking and how it works. He recalls a moment when he trafficked 36 domestic workers to Dubai but had no contractual obligations either with them or their employers.
36 of them, they went in bits, like 10, 5, they all wait in the waiting lounge. Or what they do, they can take them to Nairobi. They fly from Uganda to Nairobi. For example, by then we use the KQ. They send them to Nairobi and wait from Nairobi. Because the official flight that connects you to Dubai is at exactly 7 p.m. Now we waited, the team moved, another team moved, another team moved. We went in bits. Then me, I remained behind. I was supposed to go in last until when I see that each and every one has crossed over. And they go.
He alleges that it's a game of compromise at the airport.
There are smart guys who can connect them to the airport. If you get the visa verifiers or the ticket verifiers, they will connect you to the immigration officer who is going to look into your passport to see whether you have the genuine visa or the ticket is okay. And then the security officers, for example, ISO is at the airport and CMI because of the security reasons. Now, this person, the visa verifier, will connect you to these two people. He will just inform them, these are my people. And they will charge you in between $150 or $100. That money will be shared between these two or within these three people. The immigrant officer and even the immigration officer and the ISO or security or CMI officer. Each one can take 100K from each person who is moving out of the country.
Ugandan authorities like the Civil Aviation Authority are put on the spot for aiding this modern-day slavery. We put this to them.
No, we treat every case on its own merit. Whenever there is an allegation or claim, we believe in investigating it to its logical conclusion. The good thing is that we do not work in isolation. We have all the state security agencies represented at Entebbe International Airport. From ISO, ESO, CMI, and all, they have representation at the airport through joint security operations.
We will refer to the latter. We take our journey back to Bernard Katabalwa. Bernard is trying to pick up the pieces after spending 2 years in the United Arab Emirates undercover.
After here, I'm heading to Abu Dhabi.
Video recording his life as a cleaner. This was after he failed to find employment in Uganda and opted to explore opportunities in the Arab world.
If I can let people here home know that people out there ain't well, ain't doing well like they think they are doing. So I said, okay, let me go collect some footage, do an investigative documentary. Though I centered it to me, I became the subject. I try to cover myself, do that as the subject.
Bernard returned to Uganda in 2020 and as an ambitious journalist put together video content from UAE, and we will exclusively, for the first time, show you inside the UAE.
Sleeping.
An assistant doing the law.
Bernard had a daily routine of cleaning and heavy work, filthy work, combing the stained water sinks and unflushed toilets to heavy loads.
This locker is heavy. Believe, heavier than me. But I have to get it out of the building.
And at that point, while you're taking that locker down, what was going through your mind?
Giving up. Yeah, I felt like giving up. Unfortunately, I needed the money. I couldn't just go home, give up work and go home like that. Because if you don't deliver, it means you can't work. You go back home and compensate the company.
Bernard's experience also reveals the injustice of mistreatment of domestic workers here.
They shout, they shout, they are good at shouting. They don't communicate. No, they shout. They shout. If you short-tempered, you can slap someone. They shout.
With no proper cleaning garments, Bernard went through a cycle of health complications which worsened his stay in the Arab world.
The content of acid in this chemical is enough to peel off your skin in just one day if in contact with it. Sometimes gloves break.
Sadly, his health insurance couldn't help. He had to meet his medical bills. But more stunning is the disrespect of his health leave to be able to get proper medical attention.
I just need to take some rest, like around 5 minutes, I think. I'll be resting. The doctor gave me a sick leave of that very day. It expired on that very day. I went at 4 p.m. The sick leave was that day. I went, meaning in the morning, I have to report for work. You miss more than a week, you are subjected to going back home. And though with some penalties.
Some of Bernard's recordings while in domestic service are so graphic, and some videos are disturbing.
Waking up to unflushed toilets on a daily damaged his mental well-being.
I had never seen people dirty that way. Very dirty. And for them, they knew you were a cleaner, you're paid to do that. So someone comes with anything. They pour there in the corridors, anywhere they feel like. You look at faces and it's like normal, normal. But it's normal, you're used to seeing it. You find it in the toilet bowl they didn't flush. You don't get scared that much because you saw some in the shower room. Unusual.
The Gulf region is a region sensitive to the media, and it is with luck that Bernard managed to return home safely. But his courage and ambition are a bigger message to heal the world.
Bernard's life was, one, very risky because he kept doing live recording for all the work that he was doing to show you that it is not as rosy as we are told, but to also show you that when you come over to work, it doesn't matter. They have got a person who is supposed to be doing a particular kind of work, and that is the work you're going to do it, whether you're sick, whether you're bleeding, whether you are drained, whether you're tired. Only when you're dead will you stop working. That is what Bernard exposes, and the eye that he brings to this story that we had missed.
Domestic workers have worked and still walk this long journey. Its feelings of devastation, shattered dreams, against hope.
Going there as a Muslim, I thought I'm going to find an easy place, an easy home to stay and work from, but it broke me the most.
For us, we stand here by God's power, but they can shoot us in a day.
Once a person is alive and they are still functioning, then they are of much help to us than when they are dead or wasted.
On the go, the dark side of labor externalization.